time, drinkbloodofTyrants.com, promo code BASED, BASED, like the title of the show, will save you 10% off your order at the checkout. Support the brands that support my gambling addictions. Okay, well, this is the new a new segment we're doing here on the fourth Wednesday of every month. We're going to call it Heartland Hot Takes, where I break down local news here in Nebraska, Omaha Metro and Nebraska area at large. If you're not a fan, if you're not local here in Nebraska, maybe you'll learn something. Maybe you'll find something out that is interesting to you. Maybe it'll be the subject of national news. If you're here for the national shit and you don't give a shit what I have to say, well, tune in Saturday and we'll talk plenty about that. I'm sure it'll be like 2 to 2.5 hours because we're not doing any national news on the Wednesday show this week. But before I get into any of that, before we get into any local news, anything like that, totally unrelated subject, I don't know if you guys, I have a lot of hobbies, right? I have a lot of hobbies, and one of them is math and statistics. I'm a big fan of math and statistics, and every now and then I like to put in just super crazy probabilities and punch the numbers in and run it through some AI and figure out what the probability of something happening is, and just see just how rare it is, and then compare it to other super rare events. So I just thought I'd share the problem I was working on this week. I'll go ahead. All right. So did you guys know that the annual suicide rate for physicians in the United States, per a number of studies that they've run on physician suicide, is 40 per 100,000, or 0.04% per year? Right? Okay. All right, cool. No, that's slightly higher than the national average, but still really low. Did you know that the probability of a physician using a firearm, though, when compared to the 60% for the rest of the country, is only 25%? Only 25% of physicians commit suicide with a firearm, and that is a high estimate compared to the rest of the country, which is 60%. It's approximately 3 times less likely a physician is, and surgeons are even less likely, but we're just using physicians here for argument's sake. And the reason for that, there's a couple of reasons. Number one, if you're a surgeon or a physician, odds are you've worked in a trauma unit like an emergency room, and you find that not every time somebody shoots themselves do they end up sealing the deal, and they just walk around permanently maimed for life. They also know much more efficient ways to kill themselves, such as drug overdoses. They know the correct cocktails, the right veins or arteries to cut. They also know the majority of them end up using carbon monoxide poisoning. So very, very rarely do you see a surgeon commit suicide with a firearm. So if you compare, 1 out of every 10,000 surgeons who die by suicide per year do it with a firearm. Interesting. Now, here's another fun statistic that we can just add into this, just for funsies, right? Only 5 to 15%, so we'll meet right in the middle, of suicides occur outdoors. So only 5 to 15% of suicides occur outdoors. Physicians, however, are much, much, much more likely to choose to commit suicide indoors than the rest of the country. So that number probably leans more toward the 5. But again, we'll just be nice and we'll do 10%. We'll meet right in the middle. How about that? Another one. Just let's throw one more wrench into the equation here. Did you know that the majority of suicides, over 95%, occur at night rather than in broad daylight? Did you know that? So when we round the numbers up, the probability of a surgeon committing suicide with a firearm outdoors in broad daylight is about 1 in 2 million. Just fun math facts today, not related to any story whatsoever that we're going to cover. I'm just breaking down some fun statistics for you guys. Now, When we say outdoor suicide, what you have to consider is normally those are people almost every single time. Very rarely do you see someone, commit suicide in an urban area outside, or much less in suburbia. Almost always that's in the woods. It's in a rural area. Somebody jumps off a cliff, they go out hunting and they shoot themselves, something along those lines, or they step in front of a semi-truck on the highway. Almost never do you see an outdoor suicide in a suburban area in the United States. And if it does occur, it's like it's unheard of that it happens during the daytime. So just for comparison, and again, these have nothing to do with any story here. We're just spitballing some random numbers. I like to talk. I like math. I'm a big fan. I'm a late bloomer with math. So a surge in suicide by gunshot outdoors in the daytime is about a probability of 1 in 2 million. For context, the odds of getting struck by lightning is 1 in 15,000. So you're just over 130 times more likely to get struck by lightning than you are to see a surgeon commit suicide with a gun outdoors in the daytime. 1 in 1,100 or 11,500 to win an Academy Award. Same number for Bowling a Perfect Game. 1 in 200,000 that you die in a plane crash, and 1 in 12,500 that you hit a hole in one in golf. All much, much, much more common than a surgeon committing suicide by a gunshot outdoors in the daytime. In fact, if you want to look, the odds of that cocktail happening for a death of a surgeon committing suicide with a firearm outdoors in the daytime is about the same as you being killed by a shark. You've got about the same odds as you do at getting killed by Jaws. Just totally unrelated, random factoid of the day. Anyway, so in completely unrelated news, the Omaha mayoral election is heating up. And, okay. Totally unrelated news. It really was. Okay, can I say something? There is, I'm going to preface this, no evidence to my knowledge that has been made public that our current illustrious mayor, Gene Stothert's husband, died of anything other than a self-inflicted gunshot wound as a surgeon outdoors in his backyard in the daytime. Again, totally coincidental that I brought that up in the first half of the show. There's no proof that he did anything other than that. But what I will say, and I won't even say, I will beg of you, everyone listening to this show, whether you know me, whether you're a close friend of mine, your family member, whatever the case may be, if I commit suicide with a gun registered in Mia's name in the backyard in the daytime, and a year later, she marries one of her lifelong friends, please investigate that, because there's probably a little bit more to the story. Please just dig into it a little bit. Could you, for me? That's all I ask. I just ask that we be a little bit more inquisitive if I die under those circumstances. Please. Again, no proof whatsoever that Joe Stothert died of anything other than a self-inflicted gunshot wound. I'm just saying, I feel like it's like the Pizzagate thing. Probably no conspiracy there, but the way we just gloss over and shut down any questions surrounding it makes me a little nervous, I guess. I don't know. And I'm just reading random statistics, right? I'm just reading random statistics. Obviously, that equation that I ran when the show started was not about Gene Stothert's husband, right? The 1 in 2 million odds of a surgeon committing suicide with a firearm outdoors in the daytime. That was obviously not about Gene Stothert's husband, because I didn't throw in the fact that it was a mayor's husband who did it, which would bring it from 1 in 2 million to about 1 in 10 million odds that would happen. In other words, you have significantly better odds of going to the roulette table and hitting it 5 times in a row than you do of a mayor's husband who also happens to be a surgeon committing suicide with a firearm outdoors in his backyard during the daytime. I'm just talking statistics. I am talking numbers. I'm a big fan of mathematics. That's all. I don't have any conspiracy theory I'm here to push. Like I said, there's no evidence to the contrary of what has been officially reported. I just think we should all look at data as well when we go to cast our votes if we live in the city of Omaha. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. And I am not, nor have I ever been suicidal. Now, I'm not important enough to be whacked, but my character may be whacked. If you might hear some stuff about me in the couple. I don't know what it's going to be. I don't really have that many skeletons in my closet, but whatever they say, it's probably true. Okay, so let's talk about this Omaha mayoral race, shall we? The Omaha mayoral race is heating up, and one of the big, so we've got 4 people running, and we've covered it on the show already. We've got the incumbent, Gene Stothert. We have got Mike McDonald, a former Democrat turned Republican senator, state senator from Nebraska down in Omaha. We have got John Ewing, the Democrat Douglas County treasurer, and then we've got Jasmine Harris, who is a far left progressive lunatic that we don't talk about on this show. So those are the only 4 that have registered and are going to qualify for the ballot. It really looks like it's going to be down to McDonald and Stothert. Now, Mike McDonald at an event allegedly referred to Tamara Dwyer, the city of Omaha's homeless coordinator, as an, and I quote, DEI hire, end quote. Now, I don't know if he said this, but he hasn't denied it, which means he probably did. And I guess he didn't know that she was in the front row when he said this. And she went on a Facebook tirade. Gene Stothert backed her up, and everyone was talking about what a horrible, bigoted monster that Mike McDonald was for saying this. Again, I will pose the same question I did the last time we talked about this race. If McDonald was really this horrific, bigoted monster that the Democrats are trying to paint him as, why are we just now hearing about it? That gives us what the guy was. He held elected office in the state of Nebraska in a dark blue district where you could have easily primaried him if there was ever a problem for 8 consecutive years. And we didn't hear one chirp about what a horrible monster this guy was. The second he decides to run for mayor as a Republican, they start bringing out all the stops. I think it is a little odd timing. That means there's one of 2 choices: that the Democrats knowingly covered up for a monster for 8 years, or they're fucking lying. You take a guess what it is. So Gene Stothert defended this woman like her own child. Well, as it turns out, let me preface this. He probably shouldn't have called her a DEI hire. That probably wasn't the best move in terms of tactfulness, but it also wasn't incorrect. This woman makes nearly $100,000 a year in this role, and this role was created shortly after the city of Omaha received federal funding from the Biden administration to go toward, you guessed it, diversity, equity, and inclusion. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to put 2 and 2 together here. That's all I'm saying. Like, I don't think that she may be qualified. I don't know. We'll go over some numbers in a little bit here that might detract from that. Maybe she is qualified. Maybe she on paper and in the interview looked like the most qualified person for the job. But by definition, that money came from a DEI effort, federal funding for a DEI effort. She is by definition, by the very definition, a DEI hire. Now, since Tamara Dwyer has taken over as the city's homeless coordinator, a position that didn't exist until she assumed the role, the city of Omaha has become the fastest growing metropolitan area in the country for homelessness. Maybe she got the job, or maybe she saw homeless coordinator as the title, and she was like, oh, I got to bring as many homeless here as I can. It's like a donation coordinator for a campaign or something like that. I got to bring donations in. Maybe she misread the job description, just looked at the title like we all do and went, oh, I just got to keep bringing the homeless here. How do we get more homelessness? That's my goal, is to coordinate the most homelessness possible. We've also seen a skyrocketing percentage increase in amputations from frostbite during the winter. Now, it's not like we're in Montana, in rural Montana, or we're up in Alaska. This is a city, right? You're not having to worry about people outside and, taming the wilderness. It doesn't take, again, a rocket scientist to figure out who's getting their arms and legs amputated due to frostbite in a city. Not a big stretch of the imagination there, I'd say. So I don't know. Maybe she was a bad hire. Maybe she was a wait. Maybe we need our own Doge here in the city of Omaha. Just spitballing. I don't know. But this all came to a head, and I think Jean Stothert made quite the blunder because she decided to make a huge deal defending this Tamra Dwyer from Big Bad Mike McDonald and his so-called bigoted comments about her. And in the process, while that was happening, you had a homeless woman downtown freeze to death. Well, as it turns out, this woman was staying in a shelter, and due to the city's new policy, a newer city policy on homelessness, again, coincided from Miss Dwyer arriving in her position, there was some additional paperwork that she hadn't completed regarding her dog staying with her in the shelter, which, by the way, I think it's insane. If the dog's not aggressive, I think it's insane to tell a homeless person they can't stay in a shelter without their dog. I think that's bullshit. So Tamra Dwyer, or excuse me, not Tamra Dwyer. So this woman was told that night, hey, you don't have the proper paperwork for this dog. You got to go. We're kicking you out. Rather than doing the human thing and saying, hey, this is messed up, but we understand it's 10 degrees below zero outside with an even lower wind chill. We'll figure this out tomorrow morning. You can stay here and we'll talk to you first thing in the morning. Instead of saying that, they just kicked her right out because that's how the government works. In private sector, you have a little bit more leeway, but as soon as the government gets involved, you're out of here, right? And a cent of government funding totally convolutes the whole thing and just lines it in red tape and makes it impossible for anyone to show any type of human element to their job. So she got kicked out and she froze to death that night. Well, as it turns out, the dog was a service dog. She was epileptic. She had a seizure in the cold and froze to death. I'm going to let that sink in for a second. So Jean Stothert almost Streisand affected this entire thing by drawing all this attention to the city's homelessness coordinator, talking about what a great job she'd done, when her policies, I'll say it, killed somebody. The city's policies on homelessness, whoever wrote them, killed somebody. That blood is on their hands. In my opinion, Stothert and Dwyer should resign in shame immediately. Drop out of the race, Gene. This is a disgrace. You are who you surround yourself with. You can throw your homeless coordinator under the bus. You are the people you surround yourself with in this job. Drop out of the race. Do the right thing. Drop out of the race. She won't do that, though, because she's a power-hungry psychopath. But she needs to do the right thing and step down. Effective immediately. I would say she's fortunate in the fact that we have a fast 24-hour news cycle, but the problem is that's in national politics. The more localized the political game gets, the longer that news cycle stretches out. And while the primaries are in May and the general's not till November, we have an open election here. So everyone runs in just an open primary. The top two, whether they're both Republicans, Republican Democrat, Republican Independent, doesn't matter, advance to the general in November. But since this is a local race, you're not going to see a whole bunch of other stories between now and May. Don't be surprised if they manufacture some, because that's the thing. Now Stothert would rather keep talking about this DEI comment than actually address the issue of her failed policy. And I've got a number of gripes with Stothert. You've heard me air them out on this show a number of times. But that's where we're at. If you haven't noticed, I'm endorsing Mike McDonald for mayor of Omaha. Go vote for him. Do I agree with everything he says? No, I actually don't agree with his solution to the homelessness crisis. He said he wants to create designated areas for the homeless to go where they're provided with food and medical care and you name it, which is fine. It's better than what the city's doing now. But I think the goal should not be to attract more homeless people here. That's what they do in San Francisco. That's what they do in New York and major liberal cities in Denver. And that's why you see so many of them over there. I don't think we should be attracting homeless people. I think what we should be doing, because there's two types of homeless people, right? Well, three. There's three types of homeless people. There are the temporary homeless people, right? The people who, down on their luck, a bunch of shit happened to them, but they're going to bounce back. They're in and out of shelters. They're bouncing around on couches at their friends' and families' houses. They're going to bounce back. Then there are the people who are homeless by choice, and that's fine. Those are the people that travel the country and go to different areas that are more welcoming and offer them free shit. We should not be one of those areas. The third type are the people that are not homeless by choice and not picking themselves up by the bootstraps anytime soon. And those are the people that once upon a time would have been put in asylums, but we had to shut those down, so be it, right? Because that's the thing with that third group of homeless people there that nobody wants to talk about, is those are the people that have either destroyed their brain with drugs or their brain's already destroyed from mental illness, and they just roam the streets. And you tell me, oh, we need to house them, give them free affordable housing or affordable housing. Well, you can make it as affordable as you want. They're not going to be able to pay for it. But here's the thing. Once upon a time, the government did have free housing for those people. It was called asylums, and you all shut them down. Now they roam the streets and stab people on the subway. Congratulations. Now they take giant dumps in the alley in front of children. You did that, guys. Congrats. You woke, do-gooder, virtue-signaling progressives. Good job. So I don't think we should be attracting those last two groups to this city. I like Scott Voorhees from 1110 KFAB's idea of giving them $100 for a bus ticket voucher and saying, go to one of the cities that wants you. The last two groups, that is. Don't stay here. We're not going to pay for you to harass people on the streetcar, I'm assuming now. But McDonald nonetheless proposed this idea, which I disagree with. I think it incentivizes people to come here. But just because I disagree with it doesn't make him a monster for it. But that's not what Gene Stothert had to say. Gene Stothert, in an interview also on 1110 KFAB in the radio, or in the morning on the radio, compared McDonald's idea to and I'm not kidding, Nazi concentration camp. A Nazi concentration camp. That's where we're at. Because Stothert is a soulless, gutless, unprincipled sleazebag politician who will say whatever it takes to remain in power because that's the only thing she's ever loved. She catered to the right for 3 terms, has slowly lost the right as she's tried to become this big city liberal mayor, and then decided that, okay, now that I can't win the right, I'm going to cater to the left because the other guy's going to win the right. The conservatives in this city have found he's not perfect, but he's a Republican that's not me, and they're going to vote for him. So I got to win the Democrats. The problem is she's making the Kamala Harris error, where she's not catering to the 80% of moderate Democrats in the party. She's catering to the 20% that are a bunch of wingbats. And she's going to continue to move further and further to the left. And I'm telling you right now, if she wins the re-election, it's going to be hell to pay. She is going to govern like a full-blown communist for 4 years. She is going to see the people in the Republican Party that turned on her as her enemy. And it will be open season on all of us. I voted for Jean Stothert in 2017. I didn't like her or Heath Mello. I didn't vote for either of them in the primary. I voted for Taylor Royal, even though he had his football field idea. It was crazy. I knew he wasn't going to win, though, but I still voted for him. General rolled around, and I voted for her because it's my opinion that when you have to choose between pond scum and a piece of shit, you pick the one that's going to tax you less. And she claimed she wanted a little bit lower taxes. She also campaigned on abolishing the restaurant tax in her first of her 3 terms she's going on 4. And as soon as she took office, raised the restaurant tax. Yeah, I didn't forget that one, Gene. Says whatever she can to get elected, and then stabs her base in the back because she has no soul, figuratively. Politically. I wonder if she'll come on the podcast and do an interview. I wonder if she'd come do an interview with me. It'd be a real friendly one. I think she might be the first guest that's taller than me. But that's where we're at, and we've got this stupid argument over a streetcar that we don't need. I don't care. You can yell at me all you want. And here's the thing, guys, with this streetcar. It could be the greatest thing since sliced bread. You could have all the arguments in place for why we need it, and they could all make perfect, logical, coherent sense, which I don't think they do. I'm still not sold on them. I keep hearing that there's all these great arguments for the streetcar, and when people try to present them to me, well, it's not all that compelling. Doesn't really appeal to me. It's just gargle that comes out. Recycled talking points. Looks like ChatGPT wrote them half the time. But you could have every statistic, every piece of data, every logical argument on your side. But if the majority of the people in your city don't want it, you don't do it. You're not our parents that are telling us to eat our Brussels sprouts because it's good for us. This is a representative democracy. We elected you to represent us and our interests. We are not interested in a streetcar. You making us pay for a streetcar is not representative of our interests. It's not. And their little website that they run around, and I point this out every time I can because it's the biggest scam in the world. It's the worst gaslighting that local government does. If a private company did anything remotely close to this, they'd lock them all up in prison forever, and they deserve it. But they're claiming that the streetcar is going to pay for itself. We're not going to have to raise taxes because we've never heard that before, right? But the streetcar is going to pay for itself. We're not going to raise anybody's taxes. No, we're good. We're good. And then you click their little website, and within the first paragraph, it says the way the streetcar is going to pay for itself is, the mere presence of a streetcar, or so they claim. The mere presence of a streetcar will make everybody's property more valuable. So we'll be able to tax your house for more money because your house is worth more. So they're not, again, they don't raise your taxes. They raise the value of the thing they're taxing you on. The biggest scam in the world. Now, would a streetcar really make my house more valuable? No. Of course it wouldn't. Of course it wouldn't. But it doesn't matter because they're the ones who set the values. So they'll just send the county assessor out and go, yep, the streetcar increased everybody's home value by $30,000. That's what we're going to tax you at now. And that's how it, quote unquote, pays for itself. Nothing the government does pays for itself. We pay for all of it. Some of it's worth paying for, like roads and the fire department and the police department and the post office. Some of it's a service that's worthy of paying for. Some of it's not, like a streetcar. So basically what happens is myself as a homeowner I don't think my house is considered West Omaha. It was a couple of years ago. But so myself as a homeowner in central Omaha, who may use this streetcar once in his life, maybe, and everybody else in central and West Omaha who will never use the streetcar, the 98% of the people who are never going to use it, now have to pay for a service that will never be of any value to them. Because Omaha is not set up for a streetcar. We're not Chicago. We're not San Francisco. We're not New York. It doesn't make sense for us to have one the way the city is set up. They basically want to run it from midtown to downtown. So they're going to jack my property taxes up so they can run a streetcar for like a 5-mile stretch. It's worthless. This is not about helping the city. This is not about increasing property value. This is not about doing any of that. This is simply about Jean Stothert's dick measuring contest. She wants a legacy item. A legacy item. Something people can look back after she has graced us all and retired for once and say, oh, that was Jean Stothert's. Mike Fahey, former mayor, has the stadium. Teddy Roosevelt, Panama Canal. Donald Trump, wall. So when you think about politicians with legacy, people that built something, this is what it's really about for her. Even if it does help the city, that's secondary, in my opinion. That's secondary to the real goal here, which is leaving a legacy piece for Jean Stothert, who has now told us, by the way, it's the same company doing all of this, who's now told us that because of the way the deal's signed, at this point, if we don't build the streetcar and we cease it, the way they wrote the deal up is the taxpayers will actually end up footing an even higher bill because there's penalties and clauses for the city backing out of it. So she's now threatening us that we're going to have to pay even more if we back out of it. I mean, this is like a domestic abuser trapping you in a bad relationship. So we're damned if we do, damned if we don't at this point. Now, I don't have any proof of this, but this is the type of shit that reeks of corruption. Somebody's got dirt on somebody or somebody owes a favor to somebody. So they hand out these absurd deals for something that's totally worthless. And then they guarantee it, sign it in blood, but it's our blood. We made a deal with the she-devil mayor here. And the problem is people want stability in local politics, so they'll just keep voting for it. They'll vote for the slow death over anything that can remotely change the course of things. In local politics, incumbency, barring a major scandal, which I think this homeless woman freezing to death qualifies as, but unfortunately, I don't think it occurred. Well, not, I mean, unfortunately, it happened. I wouldn't have wanted it to happen at all, but it didn't occur close enough to the election where it's going to actually move the needle either way. But in local politics, you need a massive scandal, basically. And I'm not seeing one on the horizon. I don't see anything coming. So my fear is, because I can already predict how this is going to go, right? You ready for this? I can predict how this is going to go. Stothert will get about 40% in the primary. McDonnell will finish a distant second, but still beat out the two Democrats as they split the vote. You'll go on to the general. My guess is she wins by 8 to 10 points. I hope I'm wrong, but my guess is she wins by 8 to 10 points because I think there's still enough Republicans who will vote for her, and then McDonnell's not going to be able to win over enough Democrats because they're going to hate him. They'll either vote for Stothert out of spite, write in Mickey Mouse, or stay home. I hope I'm wrong. Genuinely. And anything I can do, I'm offering my services now. Anything I can do to the McDonnell campaign to help you guys out, I'm all ears. Let me know. Let's sit down and talk about it. There's a chance they say, yeah, don't ever endorse us again because you're poison. Fine. I'll do that. Anything I can do, though, to help you guys out. Ooh. What was that? Oh. Because we need a change of leadership in this city. And I don't see a scandal on the forefront that's going to cause a major mix-up yet. Could be wrong. I don't know. Okay, let's talk about a little bit about some of the bills in the legislature. There's a big one that everybody's debating that would require the 10 Commandments to be placed out in front of every public school in the state. And I know that some of our more conservative listeners might think this is a good idea. Here's my thing. Why are we still doing this? We can have this culture war fight after my property tax bill is no longer bigger than my car payment. How about that? The Republicans in the legislature, unicameral, so we don't have to worry about a House. It's just the Senate. The Republicans in the unicameral who claim to be small business or small government have a supermajority, and they've had one for over 4 years now. Where is my tax relief, small government conservatives? I don't want to hear any excuses. We're a top 5 tax burden state in the country, run by quote-unquote small government conservatives. Why can't you figure it out? How long have you had to figure this out? Every other state in the country, every other red state, has figured it out. We're not special here. I know we like to think we are because we got our gay little unicameral, but we're not special here. Why can't you fix it? I've offered an easy solution. Maybe I'll run. Well, I'm not. Maybe I'll run for Senate. For state Senate. I've offered you a very easy solution. Everyone's property tax is subject to the value at which they bought the home. And unless the person either A, goes to sell it, or B, goes to refinance it, or C, gets a home equity line of credit or an additional loan against the home, those are the only 3 scenarios, it is illegal for the county assessor to value your property at a higher rate. You only get taxed on what you bought it at. So if your house is $500,000 now and you bought it in 1991 for $150,000, congrats, that's what you get taxed on. Now, if you bought it a couple years ago when the prices were through the roof and you paid $350,000 and now it's worth like $320,000. Well, that sucks. You still got to pay on the $350,000 or on whatever the valuation of the property was when you bought it. I feel like that's fair. It's simple. It's fair. It's easy for everybody to understand. It's not too radical where, where either side is going to go, I object to this. None of that. It's fair and simple. And it's a good compromise. Why can't we do that? That feels like the easiest way to do it. Look, I had no problem paying property taxes on what I paid for. I agree to the deal, right? I bought the house for what I bought it for. I shouldn't have to pay another dime more than what I paid it for. That's the only thing that works that way. They can't come and say, hey, that's that guitar you bought, it's a classic now. I know that the sales tax you paid on it when you bought it was $30, but we're going to need another $270 from you since it's now skyrocketed in volume. No, this is in value. This is the only thing they do. It's the biggest scam in the world. And they can run around and tell everybody, hey, look, we're not raising your taxes. We're paying for these new expenditures, these new state and city expenditures without raising your taxes. Well, of course not. You just send your hitman, aka the county assessor, around to value everybody's property at more than it's actually worth. You just jack it up and you steal their money that way. And don't even give me shit about like, oh, well, how are we going to fund our budget? Doesn't matter. I don't care. That's not my problem. If you can't figure out how to pay for your shit without lying, stealing from, and defrauding the taxpayers, you shouldn't pay for that shit. If I want something and I can't figure out any way to get it other than go rob a bank, I shouldn't buy it. You either come up with the money legitimately or you don't do it. Or you cut somewhere else. I mean, that's really what it is. Bring in online sports betting. Easy money for the state. Easy money for the state. Recreational marijuana. I'm not a fan of it. I don't care if someone else wants to do it in their basement. Easy money for the state. And guess what? If you lower we have a brain drain problem as it is. You don't really incentivize people to come here when you just continue to jack their taxes up. Nor do you incentivize them to stay here. I mean, you guys have to understand the amount of hatred in the city of Omaha that there is for the city of Council Bluffs is unprecedented. It's unlike anything I've ever seen before, right? It's seriously, it's like Sunnis and Shiite level hatred, right? I have seen more people that I know from Omaha either consider to move or flat out make the move 30 minutes across the river to Council Bluffs because the tax burden is so much lower over there. I considered it. We talked about it. Mia wouldn't be caught dead in Council Bluffs, but we discussed it. So anyway, back to this 10 Commandments thing. I don't like it. I'm not a fan of mandating public schools put any type of religious symbolism out in front. Although I am a Christian, here is my reasoning. Because that's all fine and dandy when things are going our way. But as I've said time and time again on this show, when we set precedents, we have to ask, when and how is that precedent going to be used against us? Because it always will be. Do you want to get Baphomet in front of the schools as well, the satanic symbol? Because that's how you get it. Because it really is. It's all fun and games until you start getting Islamic statues in front of schools in Minneapolis. And I know you guys can sit there and claim you're going to feel however you want to feel about it. But I know you guys out there that are applauding this 10 Commandments out in front of public schools in Nebraska thing would lose your collective shit if some school in Minneapolis or Dearborn, Michigan erected a statue with a Prophet Muhammad. Now, I got a problem with the transgender shit in the classrooms just as much as you do. That shouldn't be there either. But we're not going to right a wrong with another wrong. If Christian schools or whatever want to put statues, it's also a waste of money. It really is. In a time period where conservatives are so hyper-focused on saving money and cutting wasteful spending, with Doge and everything going on the national scale, and at a time when the fact that we're overtaxed in this state seems to be the central issue of every debate, it seems a tad bit wasteful to demand that however many thousand public schools we have in this state come up with the money to erect a statue of the Ten Commandments. Seems a tad wasteful to make that demand. So I am against that. We got a couple, Megan Hunt submitted a bill that would increase term limits from 2 to 3 terms. Of course she did right before her second term is up, because then the grift would be over and she would have to find something new to do for attention. So, of course, she proposed that one. Let's see, is there anything else going on? We've got LB 424, limit increases in property tax bills, introduced by Senator Anderson. It aims to establish capping annual property tax increases for Taxpayers Act, aka the Cap It Act. The primary objective of this bill is to limit the annual growth of property tax bills for individual properties. Specifically, it promises that the available growth percentage in property tax bills be the lesser of the inflation rate, defined as the percentage change in consumer price index for all urban consumers, blah, 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 or 3%, whichever is lower. Not quite my idea. Not perfect. Doesn't go far enough, in my opinion, but at least this is progress on it. Now, we'll see if this passes. That's unfortunately how this works, is we don't get everything we want. We get nominal gains, even though what I want is what everybody wants, and it would be very, very easy for them to put this into action. We're not going to get that. Why? Nobody knows, because we have to fight and score political points on our opponents and continue waging this culture war in the state legislature, blah, blah, blah. Next one, LR 12CA, constitutional amendment on property taxation. Senator Koth has introduced a legislative resolution proposing a constitutional amendment to reform property taxation in Nebraska. Amendment seeks to impose a limit on ad valorem taxes, aka taxes based on the assessed value of real property, establish a new method for valuing real property on tax purposes, provide certain exceptions to these provisions, eliminate conflicting constitutional provisions related to property taxation. So this one isn't even a step in the right direction. This is like we slightly turn our head toward the right direction. This is like there's a giant, your entire house is on fire, and you take a little hairspray bottle out with water in it and squirt it one time at the fire from the outside. That's essentially what this is. I don't trust what a new method for valuing real property is. No. Stop valuing it. The price I bought it at is the value until I refinance it or sell it. Stop valuing it. That's what you need to do. I don't trust your new method. Everything you guys touch turns to shit. I don't trust it. Stop doing it. We're getting fiery today. I didn't think I'd get you fiery on the Heartland Hot Takes segment. We're getting pissed off, though. Let me see if there's anything else we're missing. LB 258 from Raybold, change provisions relating to the minimum wage under the Wage and Hour Act, establish an annual fixed rate increase of 1.5% for the minimum wage. No. Stop with the minimum wage shit. Nobody gets paid minimum wage. It's a moot point. It's a talking point that you guys can parade around. Look, we got the minimum wage raise. No one gets paid the minimum wage. They wouldn't be able to hire anybody. Nobody except the illegal immigrants you guys want to keep, bussing into the country. Anything else? LB 122, Require a display of the state and national motto in schools. Why? No, I don't care. I don't care. It says the bill makes allowance for contributions from private donors to defray the costs of the posters or plaques. No. There's other things that money can be spent on. If that's money that a private donor donates, they could donate that to something else. If someone wants to say, hey, school XYZ, here's the state motto, put it up, hang it up in the school. Fine. Don't mandate it. Stop mandating we spend our money. LB 549 allow a school board to employ a chaplain, including a volunteer at a school. I like this. I got no problem with this one. I think there's way too many psychiatrists and counselors in this country. Not that they're all bad people or even that most of them are bad people, but I think sometimes spiritual advice is what you need. As long as you're not forcing it on the kid. If the kid would rather talk to a chaplain, I have no problem with that. Let's see. LB 426 establishes an American flag education program for students in grades 5 through 8 in public, private, denominational, and parochial schools. The program will include lessons on the United States flag code, flag etiquette, and the history of the American flag. Each student will receive a flag and flag etiquette book. The costs will be covered by the lottery funds or private donations. I don't like that or private donations because that means if the lottery funds don't come up with enough, the rest of it's going to come out of you and I's pocketbooks. I'm 50-50 on that one. I don't know how I feel about that. I like the concept of the American flag thing. Don't like spending more money. We're a little maxed out right now. The state of Nebraska needs to go on the Dave Ramsey budget here. Rice and beans, beans and rice. Okay? We're spending more money than we got. Let's see here. Anything else? Constitutional amendment to change legislative salaries to $30,000 annually. So right now, this is a tough one. Because again, spending money, but I don't know. I feel like these guys make $12,000 a year. And as you can see, $12,000 a year is not attracting our best and brightest. So maybe it would actually be a worthwhile investment. I'm 50-50 on that one. They'll do that, though. They won't vote to lower our property taxes, but they will vote to give themselves a nearly 300% raise. LB 125 amends the current statute to define nicotine analogs and include nicotine analogs in the definition of alternative nicotine products, places a 20% tax on the wholesale price of alternative nicotine products, which is identical to the current taxation of tobacco products that are not listed specifically in the statute. Now, here's my thing. I don't like the idea of raising taxes or adding taxes on anything, but this is something I might be willing to consider in a negotiation where, I don't know, maybe we lower property taxes or income tax, whatever. Maybe we could do that. Yeah, we'll tax nicotine analogs and 20% like the rest of the rest of nicotine and tobacco products. If you do my thing on the property taxes. LB 285 prohibits the sale of flavored vape products, which are referenced as electric nicotine delivery systems in state statutes. Tobacco and menthol flavors may continue to be sold in Nebraska. I'm against that. Stay out of it. Because where does it stop? Because I know the argument is that if it's the flavored ones are marketed toward kids. Okay, well, how far are we going to take this? Are small guns marketed toward kids? You better ban those too. They're in the video games they play with. You better ban AR-15s. Fruity tasting alcohol. This the seltzers my wife likes to drink. Those they're fruity. They're marketed towards kids. Better ban them. I don't like that. I err on the side of not just banning shit. LB594 requires drivers to use a hands-free or voice-activated technology when using electronic devices while driving. Exceptions are provided for emergency responders and in emergency situations. Yeah, so right now you can't even do it. Technically, you're not even supposed to be talking on a Bluetooth in the car. Yeah, I'm fine with this. Yeah, support. Vote for that one. So that's what's going on in your state. That's how they're wasting your money and taking your freedom away. That's the bullshit going on with the mayoral race. We will see you guys Saturday for the big show. Going to be talking all the crazy shit going on in the world. Cheating your taxes, not your spouse, and stay based.